Hi, Michael here, the driving instructor. Okay, so I said I'd make a little video to do with the biting point and finding the biting point, and perhaps more importantly, if you're a learner, how to learn how to find the biting point. So first you need to understand what the biting point is. Now I made another video all about learning clutch control, so maybe you could go and have a look at that one first, because these two sort of working together. So the clutch control one is all about having found your biting point, carefully controlling your clutch through the next few millimeters of movement, and that will control the pace at which you pull off, and that requires practice. But once you got it, you're going to be able to control your clutch in all situations. It's really useful. You'll be using it all the time, so you need to practice it. But first of all, you need to find the biting point. Now the biting point is a position on the clutch where the engine is just ready to connect to the wheels and start to turn the wheels. Now, to try and save confusion, there's another position called the holding point. I think, what? It was hard enough trying to find the biting point. Now you're telling me there's a holding point? Yeah, well, I'm sorry guys, but there is. There's actually more than one position. There's two positions, but fear not. For our intents and purposes, when you're on level ground, your holding point and your biting point are effectively the same thing. They line up. So you don't need to worry. It only changes when you go to do hill starts. And we're not quite ready for that yet. We're just learning the basics of how to control the clutch. So the first point is bring your clutch up and find the biting point. Now the biting point is when the car is ready to go. Most instructors use the term biting point. Now you could argue that's not really the correct terminology. We should be saying holding point, and the holding point just means the point where you hold your foot dead still, where biting point is describing the action of the engine connecting to the wheels, or to be honest, it's the clutch plates connecting. At that point the engine is ready to start turning the wheels. Now we hold the foot dead still at that point, and as long as you don't come up too high, the car will not move forward, and even if on a little bit of a slope, it won't roll backwards. That's what we're trying to find, this position on the pedal where it's ready to go. So we could argue that this is the I'm ready to go position, but that's a bit of a mouthful, so most instructors would just call it the biting point. So we've got the biting point, which is the I'm ready to go position, and it's a very precise point on your clutch pedal, but with practice you'll get it. The holding point, so what's this? Well, when you're at your biting point, you hold your foot still. So some people would call that the holding point, and some people, most people actually, would call it the biting point. And when you're on level ground, the holding point and your biting point are actually pretty well the same place. The car's ready to go and you hold your foot still. If you're on a hill, the car's trying to roll backwards. So although you would find the biting point, because of the force of gravity trying to pull you backwards, the car will still roll backwards. And you need to come up a little bit higher on the clutch, and so that the car is biting a little bit, and so the car begins to try and push the car forwards, and that compensates for the car trying to roll backwards. And somewhere between the two, i.e. it rolling backwards and you trying to drive it forwards, you're going to balance it out. And that's the position you need, and you hold your foot dead still. So that's our holding point, which is not the same as the biting point, because you'd have passed the biting point to reach your holding point. But this only applies on hills, and it makes the whole thing sound really complicated. So it's nice to know this knowledge, but it's not going to have a big effect on you. So we can argue that the biting point for our intents and purposes is actually the same thing. We're trying to find a position on the clutch where the car will hold dead still and balance us out regardless if we're on level ground or uphill, and we're holding it still. It's just that most instructors tend to use the term biting point. Okay, I hope that's clear. Now, as I said earlier in my other video, there are 4 ways to know when you're at the biting point. And unfortunately, the one you need to know is the very last one. And I'm going to explain the other 3 now, because the primary 3 are the methods you learn to acquire the biting point. So when you're learning to drive, you haven't got experience and you don't know where that clutch pedal is. And you're going to use the other 3 methods to let you know when you're at the biting point. So the main 3 are, you can hear the engine. So when you reach your biting point, you'll generally hear the engine noise drop very, very slightly. Just very slightly, so you've got to listen ever so carefully. If it drops a lot, you're probably going to stall it, so you're overcooking it. You'd need to immediately dip your clutch and try and carefully find that biting point again. Now, the other method, so that was sound. The other method is feel. You can feel it literally, the vibration on the steering wheel. That's why you don't want to grip your wheel tight, you want a nice light grip. The vibration on the steering wheel, the vibration through the seat of the pants, the whole car, the vibration of the car changes very slightly, and you'll find that match the noise change as well. So you can feel it. So you can feel the biting point, you feel that little dip in the car, and you feel the vibration change and the noise change slightly. You're at the biting point. And the third one is you can see it. So if you look carefully, if you're looking at the front of your windscreen, the bottom of your windscreen where your wiper is, where it meets the road there, you will see the car move very slightly. And if you happen to be looking in your mirror, you'll see it move at the back, or maybe feel the car dip down at the back. So there's the three primary methods. And I'm going to call them the primary methods because these are the methods we use to learn whether we're at the biting point. So we see it, feel it, and hear it. And people have different thinking preferences. So some people, they're very visual. I'm very visual. This is why my hands are flying all over the place. I see things easier than I feel them and hear them. So I have to actively think about feeling and hearing. But if you're a kinesthetic person, which is a touchy-feely person, you'll probably notice the vibration a lot more than you will perhaps the noise. Or if you're an auditory person where you hear things, you can hear that pitch and volume, and that change in noise is more obvious to you. But all three things are happening at once, so I'm going to recommend try and link into all three of those. There's three clues going on, and they're all quite strong. One is the noise change and the vibration changes, and you actually see the car respond. Now, if you overdo your clutch, i.e. you bring it up too high, it'll all go too much, the noise will drop too much, the vibrations will be quite violent, and so will the movement of the car. So you've overcooked it. Push your clutch down a wee bit, carefully restore it back to the biting point, and try and sense those things again. Now, I did say there was 4 ways of knowing you're at the biting point, and the fourth one is what drivers use. The drivers don't do those 3 methods. I mean, they did when they were learning, but now they know how to do it. They actually use the 4th method, and the 4th method is actually they know where the clutch should be. They've done it tens of thousands of times, and they just instinctively come to the biting point. They know exactly where that pedal should be. And that's your goal. You want to try and get to a position when you jump into your car, you know exactly where that biting point is, and you find it within a second. Now that will take time, and you'll need to practice it, but eventually your foot will always be in the right place, so your muscle memory, so your brain memorizes where your foot muscles and leg muscles should be in order for your clutch to be at the biting point. And then it drops from your conscious memory to your subconscious memory, and only when it's done that do you truly know how to control your clutch. You truly know, and you're starting to know how to drive your car. So we're trying to get it to go from conscious memory, which is the 3 primary methods, that's the seeing, the feeling, and the hearing, and we're trying to get it to the point where it becomes a memory, a reflex reaction. You know instinctively where to go on the clutch, and there's your biting point, and you're able to control it without thinking anymore. Of course, that frees up your mind to think about other important things, like you're looking at the road ahead and watching maybe someone walk out into the road, or a car get in your way or something, and the response on your clutch is instinctive because it's coming from your subconscious, and that's what we're after. Okay, so there's the 4 ways. Your primary methods, these are the ways you're going to learn to do it, is you're going to see it, you're going to feel it, and you're going to hear it. And then after a while, you're going to start to remember it. And it's really this memory one that we're after. That's the long-term goal. To prove that works, that's true, if you take an experienced driver and you put them in a different car, the chances are their biting point in their car will be in a totally different position to the other car. It's very rarely in the same place. And they will instinctively go to the position that they've learned, they know. And of course it won't be there. The biting point will be a different position. And if you watch them carefully, they will then resort to the primary methods. They start hearing and feeling and seeing the car respond. And the moment they've sort of relearned the new position of the biting point, they'll start to memorize that, and it will drop into their subconscious, and they'll know where the new biting point is. And that's why an experienced driver is so much quicker at getting the car ready than a learner driver is. A learner driver doesn't have this depth of experience of knowing where the clutch should be in order to find it straight away. He's still using the primary methods, which are discovery methods. You're sort of slowly coming up until you find the clutch, or you're listening to the engine until you hear the noise change, or you're watching the car carefully until you see that little twitch going on. You're discovering. It's not knowledge. Knowledge means bang, you're there straight away. And your goal is to get so good at it that you can do it straight away. And it takes time and practice, and I'm constantly amazed how some people can really pick it up very quickly after only a few hours, and their clutch control becomes really good, and others take time and struggle and struggle. Keep working at it. As long as you keep going, you will get there, I promise you, but be patient. All right, so I'm hoping that's helping. I'm going to make some more videos. Okay, bye.